Okay, we are calling this meeting of the Beaches Parks and Recreation Commission for this Tuesday, December 8th, 2020 to order. We begin the meeting as we always do with a Pledge of Allegiance led this evening by Charlie Smith.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. Miley, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Ayer?
I'm here.
Commissioner Dory?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Wolfhard?
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Bandrick?
Here.
Chair Striger?
Here. Okay, we begin on the agenda, item number 1, special presentations. Samantha, do we have any of those?
We do not tonight.
Okay, moving past item number 1. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which was October 13th, 2020. The floor is now open for any motions to approve or to amend as needed.
I'll move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
I'm sorry, Charlie, is that a second on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion on that matter? Okay, and since we're on video conferencing, it's probably easier for Miley, instead of giving a verbal affirmation, if you could just raise your hand if you are in a affirmation that is a yes on the motion. Just indicate as such. Okay, Richard, is that a yes? Is your hand up? Thank you. Okay. Miley, you got that as a 6 count? Okay. All right, thank you. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda, current community activities and events. Samantha?
I don't have any major updates for everyone. We did hold a drive-in movie this past weekend, and we have another one scheduled for the coming week. I believe it's December 18th. And we're also in the process we're midway through offering our Holly Jolly Trolley Trot. That's in lieu of our Santa's Village by the Sea. And we saw our first weekend last weekend. We had a great turnout from the community. And it seemed like all of our neighborhoods that we visited were very excited. Santa will be visiting through town for one last weekend. And all of those applications have been received, and he's been routed. So we look forward to seeing those we have not seen yet. And that's all the updates I have for you.
Great, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of Samantha on that particular item?
I'll just make a comment, Samantha. The Holly Jolly Trolley came through our neighborhood, and the kids were ecstatic. It was a great community bonding event. So really great.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, item 4, old business. We have none, which is excellent. Item number 5 is new business. Commissioners, as you've seen, we have one item on the agenda tonight, and that is a revisit of e-bikes on the beach trail. It is intended to also include the trails and the park, but of course the beach trail seems to be the anchor of the discussion. I know we have quite a few comments from people who wish to be read into the record and from people who do not wish to be read into the record. We should begin our discussion tonight with Samantha's report and I guess a trip down memory lane from when we dealt with this a few years back.
Yes, and for brevity, I won't bore you with those details. The contents of the history is in the staff report, as well as all the previous minutes and the agenda reports from that perspective as well. Staff didn't feel it was necessary to reiterate all of that. But we are here tonight to look at e-bike usage. As Commissioner or Chairman Striger mentioned, we are coming back today to look at expanded use of e-bikes. And in 2018, when we visited this subject matter, we were very specific to the beach trail and also the beach. And at that point in time, the City Council decided to continue the use of e-bikes on the trail during certain periods of time and within also on the beach as well. And that's how our ordinance stands today. They did also prohibit the use of the Class 3 e-bike on the beach trail. And that is typical, as we learned through the assembly bill that was passed previously. So tonight, what we're looking at is not only the beach trail, but as well as all of our inland trails and also usage in the parks. This is an item that was on the BPR Commission work plan for this fiscal year, and obviously has gotten a lot of feedback and response from the community, staff and council, as I'm sure many of you commissioners have seen a huge increase in e-bikes throughout our city, not only on our trail system within our parks, but also on the streets. And they certainly can pose a level of safety issues at certain times, depending on who the user is and how that user is operating the e-bike as well. So the purpose for us tonight is really to focus on those public spaces, which this commission has purview over. So again, our trails and within our parks. What we're seeing, I'll break away for a second with the park segment. You know, we don't allow motorized vehicles typically in our parks anyways, but what we are seeing are these electric bikes going on our turf. They're riding along the sidewalk, and they can cause a little bit of an unsafe atmosphere at times. We've seen a bit of turf damage periodically throughout our park systems over the last several months. So there's that issue we have to deal with. And then the other element is the trail system. And I think it's difficult to manage both the beach trail and the inland trails together because they're inherently different. They draw different crowds, and they do have different uses to that extent. So you can't compare the Rancho San Clemente Ridgeline Trail to the beach trail. It doesn't have nearly the volume it does that the beach trail has, but at the same time, there's a different surrounding environment, and we do see individuals using all of our inland trails and the e-bikes rather quickly. We see a lot of people, I would say, doing a lot of risk taking and driving recklessly. So for my report, I do want to briefly touch on some of the information I've gleaned from other cities because I know that's definitely a good landing point. I will say that many agencies are still on the precipice of even acknowledging and reacting to what we could coin the e-bike boom, if you will. And certainly we know that the pandemic has probably led to a lot of that. It's youth wanting to get out of the house and their parents wanting to get them out and do something. An e-bike is an absolutely great accessible means to do so. But I think our concern is how are they doing that, and is it being done safely, and where are they doing that as it pertains to our trails? So I do want to share with the commission, I received a little bit of updated information after the report was published. The city of Newport Beach, they have a boardwalk, and as we learned in 2018, the city of San Clemente is unique in that we have this amazing beach trail, and it is unlike many of our surrounding neighborhoods. It doesn't really exist anywhere else in the area. Many surrounding cities and beach cities in particular have boardwalks, which are typically wider anyways and allow for a larger volume. Our beach trail narrows in many points and is almost too narrow to fit a bicycle and a pedestrian at certain points. So the city of Newport does not allow motorized bicycles and mopeds on their boardwalk. They also don't allow unsafe bicyclists, pedestrians, or roller skaters. And then they do not allow bicyclists, pedestrians traveling faster than 8 miles per hour. So for this commission's purpose, you heard that 8 miles per hour is their limit. Currently, the city of San Clemente's policy is 10 miles per hour. In 2018, the commission at one point in time did entertain lowering it to a single digit speed limit. And that kind of ranged between 6 and 8. And so that was a recommendation from this commission at that time as well. What they do allow, again, this is the city of Newport, what they do allow is bicycles. They also allow electric personal assisted mobility devices. So that would be something like a Segway. And of course, wheelchairs with or without a motor. They also allow motorized tricycles or quadricycles as defined in another section of their code, typically used for elderly individuals. So that's what Newport does. The city of San Diego recently came out with a ruling where they banned the use of these electric bikes. Unique to that area, again, a little different from the city of San Clemente. The city of San Diego's area, they looked at their La Jolla area and also their Mission Beach area, and those boardwalks are actually considered Class 1 bike routes. The city's beach trail is not that. None of our trails are considered bike routes, so they don't have that class designation, and none of them currently fall within the city of San Clemente's adopted bicycle and pedestrian master plan. So again, we're kind of in uncharted territory. None of our trails have those designations at this point in time. And then also a city like Huntington Beach, there again, they're going to work with their police department to see how they can up enforcement, but they are also seeing the same issue, heavy use of e-bikes, oftentimes reckless by many, and they've cited many close calls. But their first approach, I would say they're kind of where we were at in 2018 with we need to take an enforcement and inform approach first, and see how that works. Now here we are today, and we've seen that it's certainly enforcement has been difficult due to stretched resources and all kinds of different elements that have come up along the way. So I think the goal tonight is to look at what is feasible for the city to undertake, and where we can go from here. I do also want to note, and I'm sorry for the lengthy report, because I said it would be brief. I do want to note as well, though, this meeting tonight, whatever we glean from this, the City Council has also directed the BPR Commission to have a joint meeting with the Public Safety Committee. And this is currently, it's an ad hoc committee, it's a new committee, and we are looking to move forward with that hopefully next week so we can continue this momentum forward. The Public Safety Committee's objective is really going to be looking at the enforceability of whatever it is the commission's going to recommend. That Public Safety Committee also has Adam Atamian, who's our code compliance manager. He manages the park rangers. It also has Lieutenant Manhart sits on that, as well as Rob Capabianca with OCFA. So, and actually Rod Malott with Marine Safety. So those individuals will be able to provide an additional perspective from a public safety standpoint when we get to that meeting. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, but again, I know there are a number of public comments as well, and I will kick it back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Samantha. So for me, the natural order of events would be everyone can have a moment to digest and marinate on Samantha's report, and now Miley would read into the record those public comments submitted by citizens who wish to have their comment read into the record. As you note, there are a number of comments we received where people do not want their comments read into the record. For those, hopefully you've all had a chance to read them on your own. So Miley, I think you indicated we have about 6 or 7.
I have 8.
8. Okay. Well, then we shall sit back and you read.
Okay. The first one is from Judith Frant. I spoke against allowing e-bikes on the San Clemente Beach Trail when it was an agenda item in 2018, and I submitted comments in 2019 almost identical to those I attached below when there was no such agenda item. I'm relieved and not surprised to see that e-bike usage, while long overdue, is again on the agenda. Nothing about my initial concern has been alleviated, and as such, I resubmit my 2019 comments with some modifications to be read again into the record. My main concern was and remains for the safety of all users of the beach trail, and concern that there would be a direct correlation between the proliferation of e-bikes on the trail and the diminution of comfort and safety for all trail users. In 2018, the then City Council assured those of us who spoke against allowing e-bikes on trails that there were usage requirements that would manage those concerns. I see no such evidence that that is the case, and in fact, proliferation has become a reality that needs to be addressed. I take this opportunity to voice again my ongoing and growing concern, not only for the multitude of e-bikes on the trail, but also for those now being ridden on the beach tide lines, city streets, dedicated bike lanes, and prohibited sidewalks. My concerns are numerous: undue speed, failure to follow rules of road, reckless driving, no enforcement, no helmets, and most significantly, underage children unlawfully riding dangerous vehicles. These concerns are echoed by a large and ever-increasing numbers of neighbors on Nextdoor. This is a calamity in the making. Regulations, enforcement, and monitoring is way overdue. The problems have only increased as more e-bikes are on the roads, trails, walkways, and beaches. I shudder to think that the most popular gift this 2020 holiday season will be Evoke. It will be an Evoke. Your immediate reconsideration of common sense regulations is required. Oh, and while we're discussing e-bikes, please take a look at unlicensed golf carts and their unlicensed drivers. Turn signals and brake lights, anyone? The next comment is from Jeff Neubauer. Use of electric bikes have become quite popular in the city of San Clemente. They should be required to be operated safely. I understand the concern of residents who do use the beach trail who are concerned by being hit by a speeding bike. I feel the city as a whole needs to take the 30,000-foot view on the topic. There has been a ton of kids riding these newly fitted bikes completely irresponsibly. They don't obey traffic, they don't ride with a defensive strategy, they often double ride on them completely recklessly. You are essentially giving a child a smaller motorcycle to use with zero training. I do not feel the use of them should be banned on the beach trail. The city should ban the use of them by people under the age of 16 or 18. This will help keep these children safe and avoid traffic accidents. These bikes are meant for adult operation and adults shouldn't be punished. These bikes provide an essential route for people that want to get to their own beach without the hassle of tourist traffic. Let's not ruin it for our citizens. The next comment is from Hector Hernandez. Dear City Council members, my wife and I walk often on the Los Mares Street Greenbelt, Beachfront Trail, and Capo Doheny Beach walk path. I am always having to tell people on e-bicycles to either slow down or be careful. These e-bicycles have become a hazard to pedestrians. They go flying by elderly people with no warnings, doing at least 15 or 20 miles an hour. These e-bicycles belong on the street with other motorized vehicles. I remember the strand between Pochis and North Beach before the island protecting pedestrians was installed. It took a tragic accident that took lives and left one of our neighbors wheelchair bound and crippled for life. The city had to pay an enormous sum for the following lawsuits of this terrible oversight. I hope it does not take another horrible incident to motivate the council to outlaw e-bicycles on sidewalks and walk pathways. Please place e-bicycles where they belong, on the street. The next comment is from Jody Giles. Dear Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Committee, I am not anti-e-bike. In fact, I love my electric bike, but I do not think e-bikes should be allowed on the popular areas of the beach trail. It is simply too crowded with pedestrians and dogs. I suggest a walk-only designation from the T Street pedestrian overpass to the pedestrian train crossing north of the pier area at all times. Much of this portion of the trail is already designated walk-only during the summer months, but the signs are not easily seen and I've not seen the rule enforced. E-bikes are fast, quiet, and many have surf racks, making them wide on the narrow trail, especially with the fencing to protect them from the train tracks. I use this portion of the trail every day and have encountered several unintentional close calls with an e-bike and was the cause of one younger e-biker's minor fall when he swerved to avoid me and got stuck in the deep sand. It wasn't a big deal, thankfully, but it made me aware of the potential risks. Other portions of the trail to the north to North Beach and the south to State Beach seem perfectly adequate for careful riding, but perhaps a few share the trail signs, reminding bikes to travel under 15 miles per hour and yield to pedestrians would create a win-win positive experience for all. Thanks, Jody Giles, T Street resident. The next comment is from Heather Goulet. I'm a regular user of the trail since day one and have experienced personally and witnessed many near misses by e-bicycle riders moving way too fast and swerving too much for safe usage of our trail. First best choice, ban e-bikes from the trail completely. They're a hazard to families and pets. Second choice, make it mandatory for all bicycles to be walked on the Mariposa Bridge all year round. Whatever your decision, please don't oversign the trail with instructions, speed limits, etc. It's not a freeway and meant to be a pleasant, beachside, healthy experience. Thank you. The next one is from Jim Grace. Dear council members, December 8th, 2020. As an avid beach trail user 5 days a week before 10 a.m., I'm listing the things that I observe almost every day on the trail. Walk your bike zones not being observed, speeding e-bikes with no regard to pedestrians. These are things that we already have rules for and the general population respects and abides by. Herein lies the problem that the council and all the committees should be trying to find an answer for. It's not more rules, it's the enforcement of the current rules. I see the most serious problem for public safety and the city's liability is the e-bikes on the trail. In 2018, the Beaches, Parks and Recreation Committee outlined the rules for e-bikes with a strict maximum speed limit of 10 miles per hour for Class 1 pedal assist e-bikes. Neither the Class 1 pedal assist e-bikes or 10 miles per hour speed limit is enforced. Pedal assisted bikes have no speedometer. Who knows how fast they're going? Based on new technology, the new version of some e-bikes are reaching speeds of up to 50 miles per hour. Some days the beach trail has turned into an e-bike motocross where pedestrians are one of the objects that they navigate through. Walking in the same direction when a silent speeding e-bike is approaching you from the rear with no warning is a serious threat to anyone young or old, especially with the constant ambient noise of the ocean. An added problem is that some of the e-bikes have surfboard racks and boards attached to the side of the bike with a skag protruding from the side, which is very dangerous since it makes the bike wider and harder to navigate. I suggest the council reconsider and amend SCMC 12.32.130 to prohibit e-bikes on the beach trail until such time enforcement of the current rules becomes achievable. Jim Grace. The next comment is from Rami Barunda. I am a 59-year-old female mountain biker. I've been riding over 20 years. I've had a bilateral knee replacement and cervical fusions. I'm not strong enough to ride many of my favorite trails on traditional mountain bike anymore. Thanks to the introduction of MTB e-bikes, I'm able to enjoy my favorite sport again. Please stop penalizing everyone for the few people that aren't riding responsibly. Ticket the people abusing the trails, e-bikes and traditional mountain bikers, not the older enthusiasts that just want to stay healthy and enjoy a sport they've loved for years. And the last comment is from Larry J. Thomas. SC Parks and Recreation Committee, we wanted to share our view concerning electric bicycles usage throughout San Clemente. We're active users of the beach trail, ridgeline trails, and public sidewalks. Although we are not electric bicycle users, we can appreciate why they are popular among city residents. With that in mind, however, we believe standards need to be set for the usage of these vehicles for the safety of riders and pedestrians sharing public spaces. Standards for electric bicycles to consider could include no usage on any beaches, beach trails, or public trails. Electric bicycles should not be used on any public or city walkway. Electric bicycles should be considered as a motorized vehicle. So then, 1, electric bicycles should use bike lanes where provided. 2, electric bicycles should merge with other motorized vehicles when no bike lanes are provided. 3, if there are variances in electric bicycles linked to speed, then we defer this factor to you, the commission, for fair treatment, perhaps modification based on speed. We believe pedestrians and electric bicycles should not coexist where pedestrian, be it walkers, joggers, families with strollers, or other mobility support like walkers have presence. from a forward view, a key function to help ensure the city and residents are aligned with the city policy. The city should provide a citywide information campaign aimed at educating all residents' electric bicycles usage aligned with pedestrian presence. This campaign would be aimed at educating all residents as to the safe usage of electric bicycles in the city and how their access would protect pedestrian usage too. We truly appreciate your efforts to help SC and electric bicycles usage land in a good place for the good of all residents. In closing, thank you for your investment of time and expertise linked to the BPR Commission in caring for the city and its residents. Larry and Linda Thomas with an address provided.
All right, thank you, Miley. So I guess I should inquire of IT whether or not we have any individuals who had access to the Zoom call-in information who would like to make a public comment. Those who have not been elevated to a panel position. Are there any such individuals out there?
We wouldn't have any of those at this point.
Okay. Okay, so that will then close the public comment portion of this matter. So the floor is open for our general discussion, and I guess I'll just take the lead since it was not long ago that we all had this discussion before. So I'll just remind some of my comments and concerns from prior. First, I guess I should preface this by saying that I do think that the beach trail is different than the inland trails and the parks. And so it makes sense to me if everyone else agrees that we view those differently, at least for the beginning portion of the conversation. I'll focus my thoughts on the beach trail, if it were. So, as I indicated a few years back, and now I am a proud owner of a bike. So I now speak from both positions, but my position actually hasn't changed at all. And that is any prohibition involving e-bikes, I believe, has to apply to all bikes. And one of the reasons I feel that way is because there are a lot of e-bikes where it is difficult to know that is an e-bike versus a regular bike. There are also a lot of e-bikes that can be powered without motor assistance or very little motor assistance. And so if you have a bike going 11 miles per hour, or let's say you have a bike going 10 miles per hour, but we've barred e-bikes, but I, the rider, I say, well, I wasn't using my motor. I have a motor option, but I wasn't using it. It starts to become enforcement is already difficult to begin with, but it seems that, at least from listening to the public comment that we've heard tonight and reading those comments, it seems like most people are concerned with the mix of use on the beach trail, meaning people on foot and people on two wheels, not people on foot and people on two wheels versus people on two wheels with a motor. So in my view, this is do we want bikes mixing with other modes of use on the beach trail? And so I did some research. I tried to find things like a beach trail, like Samantha did with other cities. I looked as far as I could to find something like a beach trail, because a normal shared use path is at a minimum 10 feet wide, usually 12 feet wide. They're often paved in some fashion. There's a mechanism for putting a dashed line on it. And so it was difficult to find anything like what we have out in the world. And what I did find from the AASHTO, which is the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, they actually publish a planning, design, and operation of bicycle facilities manual, which I guess is the Bible of this stuff, for shared use pathways. And their position is that anything under 12 feet wide is only appropriate if bicycle traffic is expected to be low, even on peak days, and pedestrian use is not expected to be more than occasional. And there's a couple other conditions in there. And so from a national perspective, what it seems like when you're talking about a pathway that is less than 12 feet wide, you're not going to be inviting a lot of use from different modalities. And our beach trail is under 12 feet wide in several places. And it comes up on you quickly when it goes from 12 feet to basically 4 or 5 feet in some spots. And so I've never been a fan of mixing the use. I also then did some research on reaction distance. This is not for purposes of, analysis necessarily and taking it at face value, but this is part of the reason why mixed use is difficult to justify, because the reaction distance for modalities.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, I love your visuals. It's very Ross Perot, but when you hold it in front of your face, we can't hear you.
Well, I know, but then you can't see it because that's where my face is.
Hey,
I would just, thank you. I would just recite to you some of the comments were, so walking a dog, pushing a stroller, walking and jogging, those are all maximum 5 miles per hour on average, and with a reaction distance of 20 feet, give or take. The issue is when you get into e-bikes, going 15, 20 miles per hour, your reaction distance is like 65 to 80 feet. And that's part of the issue that people are having with these e-bikes, is it's not just that we don't know they're coming, they don't have the ability to stop in time when they turn a corner and there's somebody there. That was the gist of that chart. If I may summarize, I feel like the issue is going to boil down to whether or not it's necessary to have bikes at all on the beach trail being ridden. And what is the beach trail? Is this a pedestrian trail, or is it an anything goes trail? I think it's a pedestrian trail. I think there's too many places and too many days where you can't ride. You can't ride this section, you can't ride that section. These days you can't ride, those days you can't ride. I just think it's unworkable. I think we just need to decide, what is this thing? And leave it at that. And so those are my thoughts on it. I was part of the small consensus that suggested no bikes at all on the beach trail 2.5 years ago. Then we came down to 8 miles per hour as our happy medium. But as we've seen, there's no enforcement. So 8 could be 18, and it just doesn't matter. So I will defer now. Does anybody else wish to chime in on the topic? Maybe raise your hand instead of so
I'll
that I
jump
can
in there.
recognize you. Okay, I saw Bernie's hand first. Thank you, Bernie.
Quick question for Sam. Newport PD, I'm assuming they have the resources to enforce I heard you say Huntington's working with their PD to enforce it, but Newport has Orange County Sheriff volunteered to start enforcing this for us, or is that in the budget? Is that part of this conversation?
Yeah, I think it's a good topic, and I actually think it would probably be better served at our joint meeting with the Public Safety Committee, because Lieutenant Manhart would certainly be able to speak to that. I do know, OCSD is always ready and willing to assist with enforcement wherever it's needed, but they typically get pulled in many different directions throughout their course of the day. So, and you'll remember in 2018, we talked about it's really difficult to just dedicate a deputy to sit down there and watch people for bikes. I mean, the deputies are so valued in other areas of the city as it relates to public safety that, the bicyclists on the trail wasn't necessarily a top priority. So I think, Bernie, that's probably a really good question for Lieutenant Manhart, but I do know if they could, they would, but they get pulled in other places that become more of a priority in certain circumstances.
Okay. So I have some thoughts on this. Like, they somewhat parallel my position a couple of years ago. My understanding is that the trail was always meant to be multimodal, but John, correct me, John Dory, I know you know that more than anyone, so feel free later to correct me on that. And I spent a lot of time on that trail, spent a lot of time driving around town. My office is up by Poche, so sometimes I ride to work, sometimes I drive. And here's what I've noticed is that there are rude, and inconsiderate people out there. Some of them are wearing tennis shoes, some of them are riding bikes, some of them are driving cars. And as far as I can tell, there's very little way for us to create laws that fix that sort of behavior, especially when we can't enforce it. I've been on the beach trail where dogs on leashes and off leashes have created an issue for my family to walk in the narrow areas. I've been on the beach trail where double wide strollers have made it to where my family have had to get off the trail. And I'm certainly not prepared to say that you can't use the beach trail if you've got babies. I know I ride an electric bike. I try not to be a jerk, although it seems to be part of my DNA. I have my neighbor is 70 years old, and he and his girlfriend just got bikes, and it's allowing them to get out and go because he has had knee replacement surgery and he likes to ride the trail, and he's respectful on the trail. And in the same breath, I've seen 10-year-olds zooming by on $2,500 bikes that are not respectful, and it definitely mirrors some of the comments that we heard and that we were emailed. But speeding, not following the rules, and safety, the same could be said on El Camino Real on a Sunday morning when there's 30 people all wearing the same tight shirts and tight shorts, and they're riding their street bikes and not stopping at stop signs and causing traffic delays. So while I can understand that there is a safety issue there, I have a hard time punishing all citizens for the actions of a few. And I say this because I don't know what the solution is. I mean, I'd love to say, hey, 10 miles an hour. Well, you can go faster than that on a bike without a motor, and you can be just as dangerous. And bikes with surfboards, my bike, I have a surfboard rack on it, and the surfboard does not extend out past the handlebars. So I'm not sure that the addition of a surfboard is anything other than evidence that this is a beach town and people like to get to and from the beach, and the beach trail is one of the best ways to do that. So I honestly, I don't know what to do. If we had a dedicated enforcement team that could handle this, then it might be an easier solution. But to Steve's point, I can ride my bike without any sort of assistance from the battery power, and I walk it if I'm in a place that is not safe, and I try to be respectful. At the same time, people that aren't respectful, I don't know that we should be punishing the folks that are. I can remember Mike Dollar actually stood up and talked. He said he's been riding his bike along the beach since before there was a trail. And that was 2 years ago, and I can't help but think of a guy who's been in this town his whole life. He's done a ton of things that we say, hey, look, I know you've been doing this for 40 years, but now you can't. And why? Because we've got 12-year-olds ripping around too fast, and it's making people uncomfortable. And so I'm really struggling with this, just out of full transparency, and I'm not sure what to do. But those are my thoughts on this issue.
Thank you, Bernie. By show of hand, any other commissioner wish to speak on the matter? John Bandrak, thank you.
Okay. Well, besides the beach trail, I'd like to include in that the Marblehead coastal trails up there and stuff, because they're starting to use that kind of as a dirt bike little place to go riding and stuff. And just like the beach trail, it's not wide enough to maintain that. And yeah, again, 2 or 3 years ago, I think we did pass a motion to ban e-bikes on the trails, and the city council said no, just from just during the summer months and things like that. So my feeling is unless you have a dedicated enforcement, and we're not going to get it, we're not going to get any dedicated enforcement type of thing out there. You got to just say no bikes, no e-bikes, no bikes, whichever. But somehow, yeah, unless you have an enforcement code that's going to work, and nobody has a solution for that yet, we've got to just say, cut them out. That's mine.
Thank you, John. Other commissioners, Charlie?
Samantha, I've got 3 questions. We can go one by one if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Which and I'm sorry if I missed it. I apologize. Which inland trails are we mentioning when we mention, or Steve, are we just because you teed it up initially, you said, we're going to separate the beach trail from the other parts of the discussion here. Are we just on the beach trail, just for point of order?
Well, I think that's a fair question. I don't have the authority to dictate that one way or the other. I was just sharing my thought that
Okay.
I have thoughts about the beach trail. To put a bow around it, I do not have thoughts.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Inland trails.
Right. Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate that. Samantha, which inland trails are we identifying when we mention here in the topic?
Sure. So it would really be any trail in San Clemente then. That there's the Rancho Ridgeline, there's the Forster Ridgeline, there's the Sea Summit Trail that John mentioned. There's all of the trails in the back of Talega, the Prima de Checa Trail. All of those are considered inland trails. They're all part of the city's trail system. So I think as the commission looks at this tonight, there are 3 elements on the table, and I do agree, and I think it sounds like you're all in agreement. All 3 elements are different. The beach trail is its own entity versus an inland trail, and to some extent, the Sea Summit Trail is even different than something like the Rancho Ridgeline. They just are inherently different because of their widths. And then that third element is the park kind of setup. I will say again, to set aside the beach trail from everything else, we have a specific ordinance in our municipal code that already speaks to uses of bicycles on the beach trail. And that's what we looked at in 2018, was specifically that ordinance. We're in uncharted territory when it comes to regulating and passing any type of municipal code or ordinance as it relates to trail usage and park usage. We absolutely have trail rules. I mean, if you walk up to any trailhead or into any of our parks, you'll see a list of rules of things that are permitted and prohibited. But those have never been codified, so to speak. So for that extent, the beach trail is different because we do have the ability it could be written in a code or added to a code essentially, and then there can be another level of enforcement, whether that's an admin citation or whatever comes of that. There's that opportunity as well. Everything else is rules to use the park. So.
Got it. Okay. Well, and then not prepared to make a motion just yet, but something to consider here is maybe we think about separating these 3 pieces into 3 separate conversations, if you will, not to make it overly burdensome or complicated, but beach trail, parks, inland trails, just because they are very different, to your point, Samantha. Thank you. Is the second question, is the beach trail still part of the, and I apologize, I don't remember the name, but I'm just going back in the day. Is the beach trail, is it still part of the southbound bike trail?
No, I don't believe so. No, there's a dedicated bike route that does get you through downtown San Clemente. It does wind through some of the streets. It winds onto Seville. It winds a little into different varying spaces downtown. But when I spoke with planning this afternoon, they were clear the beach trail is not included in that route system. None of our trails are. They actually don't overlay any of the bike and pedestrian master
okay.
plan
'Cause-
at this point in time.
Because back in the day, right, correct me if I was wrong, from basically North Beach, right, at the train station, right, the sort of the northernmost mouth of the beach trail to basically Del Mar, right, the Pier Bowl, that was part of the southbound beach trail, was it not? Am I mistaken in saying that? Am I remembering that correctly?
I'm gonna look to John Dory. I don't think that's correct.
I'm not sure what you're referring to there. I know that stretch, but specifically I'm confused as to what you're asking. I'm sorry.
Well, I remember there was this nice lady that came through that talked to us, educated us on what the southbound beach trail was once upon a time. This is a while ago. It's probably the last time we took it up, and she explained to us what the southbound beach, what the southbound bike trail consisted of. And she kind of showed us the map, and if maybe I was making it up on my mind, but I thought that the southbound bike trail included the path, the beach trail from the North Beach, basically right at where the MTA, where the train station is, all the way down to the Pier Bowl.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. And Bernie alluded to this, and I'll give him my background knowledge again, and for the rest of you, and that is that there was a lot of consternation in San Clemente about obviously the trail itself and whether they should put it in or not. And one of the things that people focused on, this is back in 2000, 2001, 2002, et cetera. One of the things they focused on was, what do we do about bikes? The original trail was supposed to be, as Steve pointed out, 12 feet wide with a center line, and it was going to be asphalt. And the populace rose up against that. And because they didn't want asphalt on our beaches, and they didn't want something 12 feet wide, they wanted a rural trail. So the process of going through workshops brought it down in size, plus the restrictions that we had with the railroad track and with the city and with land and canyons and everything else that we had to work with. So that's why A, there's no asphalt. B, there's not 12 feet wide anymore. C, it is rural. It's just decomposed granite, and it all has different sizes to it because we couldn't make it one size fits all. And through that process and through the workshops, things got smaller. Montalvo, not Montalvo, but the Mariposa Bridge was supposed to be 12 feet wide, then it went to 10 feet, and it ended up being 8 feet. And when it got to 8 feet, the rails went to 42 inches, I believe. Could be wrong on this, but I think I'm pretty close. Which, by the way, at that time, Caltrans says you can't ride a bike on anything that has 42 inches high. Point being, the trail in many places wasn't designed for bicycles. When we have finally got it approved, at 42-inch high rails, you had to have 48-inch rails to ride a bike to make it palatable for bicycles. Because the general consensus of opinion in the community at that point was, this is for residents to walk on, exercise, bikes, forget them.
Yeah.
But what happened after that was that Caltrans changed the ruling from 48-inch to 42-inch, which meant the restriction that was built into the design was no longer a restriction. Hence, this is where we are today. So the original decision was one way, things changed, and now we're all forced to deal with this. But originally it wasn't. So that's just a little background, probably more information that you needed, but I think it's important to see see how things kind of evolved in our community.
That's super helpful, John. So not to beat a dead horse here, Samantha, just to be on the record, Planning Commission had explained to us that through your conversation that one can get from basically the North Beach to pretty much wherever they need to go via city streets. They don't have to go on the beach trail.
That's correct. So the beach trail is not part of that mobility component. There is a stretch on PCH, that's that kind of protected area now, just north of North Beach. That's part of that, and then it goes into another dedicated bike path. But again, that bike path is not directly on the beach trail.
Got it.
So the beach trail again is a trail. It's not a bike path.
Okay, one last quick question.
Sure.
Is it staff's opinion that we should be offering up direction to council now, or should we be offering up direction to council after we have the joint meeting with public safety?
Great question. Thank you for that. I think the goal here is to see if the commission can gather its thoughts and kind of come to a cohesive recommendation, and then we would then take this same recommendation to the Public Safety Committee. Again, the council's direction, they really wanted to see the BPR Commission leading this, because this is definitely BPR Commission territory. But Public Safety Committee has that element of enforcement knowledge, and they have those individuals like OCFA and OCSD and Marine Safety present as well. So if I'd like to see out of this a recommendation one way or the other. If we can't land that tonight, because maybe we need more information from the Public Safety Committee, that's fine. Maybe this can be kind of fact finding, if you will. We can gather all of the comments that the commissioners have tonight, and then take a report to the Public Safety Committee, this joint meeting that we would have next week, and debrief in that sense. And then there could be a joint recommendation that could come forward with all of the elements. This commission being the experts on use of public spaces, because that is what we focus on as a group, and public safety being the experts on enforcement of those rules. Does that make sense, or does that guide you at all?
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Samantha, if I may jump in, Charlie, this is to your question. So I've spoken with the chairperson of the Public Safety Task Force, and I invited them to come to this meeting to either sit as a panelist or to come in as a speaker. But he and I acknowledge that our spheres of influence are a little bit different. Public safety is concerned about e-bike use in general, citywide. So, for example, because I shared a fun story with him, so many of you know I live in Toledo. It seems like ever since the pandemic hit, every young person received an e-bike from the COVID ferry, what have you. And they are all over the place. And so on the little Talega pages on Facebook and stuff, they're like little gangs. Everybody reports them like, hey, the 12-person gang of e-bikers just rode down and they named the street. So everyone knows don't go near there. People have complained about a lot of things about them. And so public safety has to look at e-bikes on El Camino Real, on Pico, on Vista Hermosa, in the neighborhoods, all over the place. We have the beach trail, which is a very small, isolated area where people can't easily get out of each other's way, and inland trails and parks. So hearing their input is helpful, certainly. But to John's point, we're not going to have anybody positioned on the beach trail with authority handing out tickets anytime soon. And so they will have lots of suggestions about how to deal with the citywide, but they're not going to give us, I don't want to speak for them, but I don't know that we're going to get a lot of information about how to handle the beach trail out of that. So I don't want us to wait for that, I guess is the short version. But if we can't get a consensus, that's a different issue. Does that help at all?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we haven't, John, I don't know, John Dory, if you wish to have any specific comments on the topic. The history is very helpful, and I appreciate that. And then if you don't, we'll hear from Richard if he has any.
Yeah, the only things that I guess I wanted to bring up was what I just laid out for you folks, a little history on it. And the beach itself is different than the beach than the beach trail versus the inland. I think we've beat that to death. They are different. I don't think anybody can determine a class 1 from a class 2 from a class 3. I can't. So I don't know how you break it down and say this e-bike works and that one doesn't. I think you have to make a blanket decision on whether they're allowed or not allowed, and under what circumstances, if you're going to allow them. I think we need to focus on, if you're going to allow something, then you need to focus on the miles per hour. But then you've got an issue with enforcement. We've beat that one to death. It's going to be impossible. And this is kind of it's just a difficult. I would imagine that between us, we will have some agreement and some disagreement. If Steve, you're looking for, or if Samantha's looking for one size fits all between us, I'm going to find that to be a fascinating shoe to put my foot into and make it feel comfortable. I just don't think it's going to happen unless we compromise a lot amongst ourselves. But it's a really interesting problem. I agree that there is a problem out there. I see it standing on my deck. I watch people almost get run over. So something needs to be done. I don't have an answer. I just have a lot of questions, and I think they're being put forth by everyone here. I think everybody's looking at it correctly. And I think I'm just I move off of this at the moment. Let's just see where this goes any further.
Richard, you're the last one we haven't heard from yet on it, so the floor is yours.
I have a question for Samantha. Are we being tasked by City Council to make a recommendation on the use of e-bikes or all wheeled vehicles, cycles, etc., bicycles specifically, as well as e-bikes on the trail? What is our charge today?
So it's a great question. Thank you. The charge from council was e-bikes or electric bikes. I do think, though, what we learned in 2018, and again, what we're hearing some reminiscing of, is that it's really difficult to distinguish between a pedal bike and an e-bike. And as Bernie stated, he uses his e-bike as a pedal bike. It's very easy to toggle back and forth between those two mechanisms. And so ultimately, I think bicycle use may fold into some conversation. I think it needs to be addressed, whether or not it's to keep them separate or to say, yes, we need to combine them. I think it does need to be spoken to some extent, but the charge from council was e-bikes directly.
Okay, my thoughts were, we're getting into an area here, which is a gray area. We're dealing with questions of unlawful or essentially illegal versus questions of common sense guidelines. And those are two very different sets of discussions. The comments we heard from people and that I've heard are that common sense doesn't seem to be the rule of thumb on the beach trail. People are not using common sense. And so if we're going to establish some guidelines based on what you would think would be common sense, it's going to have to include all wheeled vehicles, and that's bicycles, and they're going to have to suffer. Now, specifically, somebody brought up the question, I think Charlie, is whether or not they're part of that bike master plan. They're not. There are specific guide pathways through the city that bicycles can take, and they're separated from sidewalks and from the street, so they're safe. But the beach path is different, or the beach trail, excuse me, is different, and it's not part of that. So there's no downside to bicyclists in this city if we eliminate their use on the beach trail. So the question comes down to one simply, are they considered motorized vehicles? And I think these are bigger questions that the whole Sheriff's Department and the County of Orange County needs to decide and make determinations about. What are 14 and 12 and 10-year-old kids double riding on sidewalks with no helmets? Those are issues that are way outside of our purview, but they're still part and parcel of the same discussion of bikes, motorized bikes. They're motorized vehicles, and they should be treated as such by law enforcement. And then we get back to a question of enforcement on the trail. So my cars are going to fall fairly clearly on one side because of the fact that they're attached to larger issues that are being not respected by the general public. And I'm sorry if it's a few bad apples that are not doing so, and they're ruining it for the bicyclists like myself. I ride it from North Beach down to the pier and then back up to my home, but I do so safely and I walk my bike. So I'll suffer, but it's for the greater good, I think. So it's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Richard. I know I might want to add that nothing prohibits somebody from walking their bike on the beach trail, and we all walk the beach trail. Some people push a stroller, some people, guide a dog, and some people walk a bike. I mean, we're all out there doing our individual activities, but at the same relative speed and with the same relative forces and momentum as one another. And that's how we all get along with each other, in my opinion. Now, I will say that in the past, we've tried to carve out time periods. And I don't know if anybody feels like if we were to prohibit bike riding on the beach trail, if something like that should be carved out just for a specific amount of time, like between April 30th and September 30th, that 6-month window, no riding on the beach trail. Basically, the warm, nice months, don't ride. The cold months, when we have no tourists, you get free to ride. I'm just curious if any commissioners see any value in that.
I have a comment.
Yes, Richard.
It was 87 degrees here this afternoon on December 8th. So yeah, this is a year-round open-air beach community, and I think people enjoy the trail as much in the summer as they do in the winter, or in the winter as much as they do in the summer. I don't think time constraints are realistic. I don't think come May, whatever it is, Memorial Day, you can eliminate bikes. I don't think that's workable.
I appreciate that.
I will tell you though that there's a major difference between Labor Day and Memorial Day. That period of time in there, or was versus, you got that backwards, Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's when all the tourists come into town. I can tell you that the beach at Riviera come around September 7th goes from packed to empty. So the amount of people that actually show up and use the trail on a daily basis goes down dramatically. I don't have statistics on that, but visually that's what happens. Bikes were never designed to be walked, never designed to be ridden the entire length of the trail. They were discouraged. They made them, because of the railings, walk all the bridges, and were very, and the width between Coeur d'Alene and the pier was just impossible. You just couldn't get people going back and forth on it through there. So it was discouraged to the point, it was designed into the problems, which makes it more difficult right now because we don't have 12 feet all the way through to discuss this around. It's prohibitive if you want to have it. If you want to have it work for bikes and e-bikes, it wasn't designed for that, period. So you have a built-in flaw that needs to be recognized.
Charlie.
Steve, I just got a chance to talk to Rick Loeffler from the Public Safety Committee. He just told me that there are some things that, some ideas that they have that they want to share with us before we, develop our direction for council. I'll just mention that he mentioned that to me, just so you're aware of it.
Thank you. I mean, we're certainly not under any pressure to make a decision now if we want to view it, but our job is to consider the best use of our limited resources. And I will say that, as I was 2 years ago, I am in favor of banning bicycle riding on the beach trail, period. It seems like maybe some of you are also in the same mindset. If you want to wait till talk to public safety, that's totally fine too. We haven't really talked about trails. And so maybe I'll just start the trail discussion. I haven't seen trails so crowded between pedestrians and bikes that it has become an issue for me to think about, but that's principally because I'm not on the inland trails anywhere near as much as I am anywhere else. And so it wouldn't occur to me that we would need to bar bikes on inland trails and or put a speed cap under 10 miles an hour. So I'm an open book on this topic if anybody wants to lead off on the inland trail issue. Anybody?
On the off-beach trails you're talking about now, Steve?
Yeah, the inland trails. I am a open, clear palette. I have no opinions.
I don't get up there now either with the back the way it is. I used to like to walk up in there and stuff like that. And I saw a lot of skateboarders on the one up near the water tower above Talega and everything like that. But other than that, I didn't see a lot of bicycles up there. Because you got to have a pair of legs on you to be able to ride those hills. But I don't see the crowd of bicycles up there interfering with people.
Anybody else wish to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that first off, I want to be clear that I don't know the trails backwards, forwards, and upside down like I do the beach trail. I've run the beach trail more times than I care to count. I would tend to agree with John. I think it's a totally different situation, which I think is what he was saying. And in some respects, those are like they're kind of like fire roads. They're a bit wider. It's like a whole new ball game in comparison to the beach trail. So I think it's difficult to talk about the idea of a ban on e-bikes on the inland trails. That's just my initial read. I don't know that I'd necessarily be prepared to vote on it in any way, shape, or form. But
yeah, Samantha, has anybody seen any damage due to the bicycles riding on the trails out there?
I don't know that there's damage. I think probably the greater concern is the reckless behavior. I mean, so if you can imagine what you're seeing on the beach trail, or some individuals who are reckless, they're just that, right. and then they take that same behavior onto an inland trail. But because the inland trails are not as prominent in the public eye, they more get away with it, I would say. So the inland trails, it could be as simple as writing into our rules that reckless driving and behavior is prohibited on the inland trail, and by doing so, if under the chance there's a deputy or a park ranger or some enforcement arm happens to be on the trail and they see reckless behavior, they then could potentially have the opportunity to enforce that. And we took that same reckless behavior language is currently in our use for bikes on the beach trail. And that was a topic of discussion as well in 2018, where that was added in, that reckless behavior and driving is prohibited.
Right.
And reckless is defined as something that would be dangerous or could cause injury to somebody else.
Sam, I think you just hit it on the head for me. Reckless behavior and it's currently written into the rules that you cannot be reckless on the beach trail. So we have rules about that, and yet people are still being reckless, right? And then there's people who, like Richard and myself, who are not, and we get off and we walk, and we're not reckless, so we're abiding by those rules, and that's where I that's just where it's so hard for me. This seems like a discussion for long. I just don't even know where it lands. I think it's pretty clear where I stand on this. I have a hard time writing more rules to live on top of the rules that already exist that are not being followed or enforced and can't be enforced.
And then there's still the problem about enforcement. I mean,
Samantha,
nobody's going to
Hold on,
enforce the
Richard.
recklessness.
Richard, wait a sec. John has the floor. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry. I was just saying there's the problem about enforcement. Yeah, you may be doing that, but if somebody else is being reckless out there, who's going to enforce that? There isn't.
Okay, Richard.
well, Samantha made a good distinction of the word reckless. Reckless behavior is when there's the possibility of harming someone else. Historically, mountain bikes have been kind of used for specifically reckless behavior. I've been guilty of that, but it's recklessness towards myself, going down stupid stuff and taking jumps where I perhaps shouldn't have when I was in my 50s and 60s. So, and that's part of the culture of mountain biking. But I don't see e-bikes, kids with surf racks, doing jumps on e-bikes, on 50-pound e-bikes on the back roads. Those two cultures are specifically different. And I don't think it's something we have to worry about. I think if we're going to do anything at all, we can make a common sense statement that there's no motorized bicycles on city trails. And that would allow bicycles, if they want to take some jumps, go for it. They're not endangering anybody else. I think that's the guidelines that are set by state parks and national forests and national parks, although I know national parks now allow e-bikes, but they have enforcement capabilities. They have the wherewithal to make sure that kids and people aren't doing stupid things in national parks. We don't have that. So I come down the side of separating the use of e-bikes and mountain bikes, essentially, on the trails, with most of which I've ridden around town, versus the beach trail. So I would make a distinction.
So let me do this. So right now on our books, we have 12.32.130, which is the ordinance specific to use on, and I'll quote it for you if you don't have it in front of you, pier, access road, beach, and beach trail. It covers more than cycling, skateboarding, similar activities. But so we already have an ordinance in place that covers cycling on the beach and the beach trail. It would make sense for us to treat these different, if for no other reason than just for that alone, just for simplicity of the statute. So,
And Steve, sorry to interrupt, just one quick thing, just make sure I understand the ordinance. That one just pertains to the beach trail, yes? Is that correct?
Yeah, beach and beach trail
gotcha,
and access road. So what we did in 18 was we added the access road to the beach trail, and then we added the beach. Because oddly enough, people were talking about people riding e-bikes on the beach. You remember we had an amusing discussion about tides and how that works when you get over by 204 and what have you in terms of riding a bike. Because you can get on the beach at North Beach, head south, and then suddenly have no sand at all in a very short amount of time. And so there is no bikes permitted on the beach at all during the sweet spot. So between June 15 and Labor Day. So that's on the beach itself. And then we get into the beach trail, the limits, walk here, walk there, right here, right there, all that kind of stuff. So if I can take the temperature of the commissioners, is anybody interested in putting forward a motion as it pertains to the beach and beach trail at this meeting? Because if nobody's inclined to do it at this meeting and you want to wait to hear from public safety, then we make a motion to table the rest of the discussion, because right now we're just playing ping pong with each other. So Fisher cut bait time. Yes, Bernie.
So Steve, I think there's value to the conversation that we're having, but I think that a motion to table it at some point is in order and probably the most prudent way for us to move forward, since council does want us to work with public safety on this. But I don't want to diminish, I think, the value of this conversation and understanding the different points of view.
Is that a motion to table?
I think if there's anything else that anyone would like to talk about, otherwise, of course, I will make a motion. I just don't want to be too premature if any of our colleagues have anything more that they'd like to add.
Well, for purposes of keeping the procedure clean, Bernie, if you don't mind, I will treat that as a motion. I will ask if there's a second, and then I will call for discussion.
Sure enough.
Okay,
I'll second.
so
I'll second.
Bernie
that,
has
Steve.
made a motion that we table this discussion to the next meeting, in the interim with which we will have conversations and/or a joint meeting with public safety. So that's the motion. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Charlie has seconded the motion. Okay, now the floor is over for discussion on the motion. Any commissioner wish to be heard on the motion? Yes, John Dory. John Dory, you are muted.
And I'm not now. How are we going to handle that meeting? Is that going to be a meeting that you are going to be at, or is that a Zoom that we're going to put everybody on this screen and have a free-for-all? I just would like to know how we're all going to interact, Samantha.
We have talked about the procedure, and it was my recommendation that in lieu of doing a subcommittee, that it would be the full body, our full body, their full body, a very full-bodied meeting. Like this Zoom with the Brady Bunch squares. We need to add some more squares, of course. But that was the game plan. Samantha, did you have a different vision for that meeting?
No, that is how it would be handled. And so this commission's aware there's currently 4 voting members on the Public Safety Committee, and there are, let me see, there's 3 non-voting members, and that would be OCFA, Marine Safety, and OCSD, and then Adam Atamian is their staff liaison or representative code. So.
Okay, and so just so you know, John, I would lead that meeting because BPR was tasked with taking the lead on it, but it'll just be a roundtable like this with them included.
Okay.
Any other comments about the motion?
Yeah.
John Bandrick?
Yeah, on the next meeting, if we have to take a vote on something like that, would it have to be approved by the entire body or just ours? Just the beaches and parks.
I think you could take separate action. You are separate bodies.
Yeah,
so the BPR commission would have a recommendation, and potentially Public Safety Committee would have a recommendation as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But John, my view, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but my guess is we would not vote as a body at that meeting.
Okay.
That meeting would be information gathering, and you guys would all have time to marinate on the information provided. And then at our next regularly scheduled meeting where the public expects to see us on YouTube and submit their comments accordingly, we would then vote on it. If we agendize it for a vote at that next meeting, I think it adds more confusion because it will not be on our normal regular day and time. Unless we get lucky and we put it on the second Tuesday of, I guess it would be January, but we're not quite there yet on scheduling. Yes, Charlie.
Samantha, is the meeting with public safety, that's going to be a public meeting, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Oh yeah, okay. A dumb question. One of the things, Steve, just a point of clarification, we're with Bernie's motion, we're just talking about tabling the conversation regarding e-bikes on the beach trail, correct?
No, we're tabling.
Okay, we're talking about all inland and park as well.
We are tabling 5A entirely.
The whole thing, got it. Okay,
The whole
sorry.
thing.
Got
Yeah,
it.
no worries. That's a good clarification. Okay, are there any other comments on the motion pending to table the matter? Okay, so I see no other hands wishing to speak on the motion. So now we vote on the motion itself. All in favor of the motion to table, please raise your hand in such a way that Miley can see it on the screen. Okay, that would appear to have unanimous consent on that. Okay, you will be informed about when the joint meeting will be with public safety. It may not be feasible to coordinate with everybody's schedule. We've got 7 people over there, we've got 6 people over here, and then we have staff. We'll do the best we can. So thank you for that discussion on 5A. We moved to 6. Miley, is there any public input?
I do have one public comment from Scott Stewart. Please open locker room at Aquatic Center. Disabled people cannot rinse off outdoors without getting wheelchair or prosthesis wet. COVID-19 should not supersede the ADA.
Samantha, have you been made aware of this comment or this concern?
Yes, I'm aware of it. So the commission's aware. The Aquatic Center and the Beach Club are operating right now. The locker rooms have been closed since we reopened. We have showers on deck that are used for rinsing off only. And we recently had our building official, who is also the ADA expert on staff, review all of our operations. We certainly fall within ADA guidelines. So we're not working outside of the box on that front. If there are individuals who need additional assistance, we do have several options to help with accommodations, including pulling up a chair for individuals. They just need to flag down a lifeguard. We also have a pool wheelchair that is completely accessible without any staff assistance. It sits on deck and can be used anytime. And then unfortunately, I don't know that we're going to get to a point in the near future that we allow the use of the locker rooms, given the county and the state's current restrictions with that we're living in. So the purple tier is definitely single use only, limited shared spaces, and that includes locker rooms at this point in time. So
okay, thank you. Miley, any other public comments?
No, there are no other comments.
Okay, on to communications then. Samantha, do you have a recreation manager report for us?
I have nothing this evening.
Okay. John Dory, part of the Ad Hoc Water Quality Committee. Is that still going on? You are muted, John.
I'm looking, there we go. I don't have anything to add at this time, and we're still waiting for a meeting to take place.
Okay, we don't have any subcommittees in place right now, so we move on to commissioner items. John Dory, Friends.
Yes, we had our annual Friends committee meeting, board meeting, and I have termed out as president, so Bill Hart has been elected to be president of the Friends of San Clemente going forward. I am still on the board and still in charge of 3 or 4 things, but I'm no longer president, but I'll still be there. And I'll hopefully still be here for a while longer too. That's all I've got.
Okay, John Bandrek, Courtney's.
Nothing from Courtney's. From Peer Pride, had a really nice turning on the lights back then in what was it, October now, or was it no? Yeah, but we turned on the lights and it had a nice thing up there at the costs and stuff that said, you know, looking forward to 2021 anyway. And I think the next big project besides finally lighting up the whole rim of the pier, is to take on to remodel the snack shack down there, raise some monies for that.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, so I see in the adjournment notes that we have already scheduled that meeting with Public Safety Committee. You all see that in the adjournment? So Samantha, you have us now confirmed for Thursday, December 17th at 5 p.m.?
Yes, I didn't get a full response from everybody on the commission. So if you'd rather adjourn, Steve, to your regularly scheduled meeting, then we can call the special meeting. I'm comfortable with that. I just threw that out there because I wasn't totally sure where everyone was at. So.
Well, why don't we take a straw poll before I adjourn to anything? So if you are able to attend via teleconference the meeting on December 17th at 5 p.m. with the Public Safety Committee, would you kindly indicate by raising your hand in such a way that I can see it on the screen? Okay, so Bernie cannot make it and John Dory cannot make it. Do either of you feel strongly about wanting to be present for that, and would you like us to reschedule? Bernie?
I'm sorry, I've been waiting for confirmation on the schedule. So Sam, I apologize for not getting back to you on that. I'd like to be part of the conversation, but I don't want to derail the process. So I'm okay with missing out on that.
Okay, John Dory?
I can make it. I had to go into my calendar to see what was going on, but I'm available.
Okay. All right, with that,
And
we
if
will then
it
adjourn.
helps, we can, if it helps to move the time to 6 p.m., we can be flexible there as well. I don't know if it matters, but.
Bernie, does that help you if we move the time to 6?
That would be better for me.
That'd be better for me too.
Okay. That's
Okay, well,
fine.
we're going to hope it's better for
that's
Bernie
still-
too. So
yeah, that
we will,
still puts me on the fence, but I will do my best. Thank you.
okay, so we will adjourn to Thursday, December 17th at 6 p.m. for a joint session with the Public Safety Committee. And with that, we are concluded for this evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Bye, guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.